There is a question that sits gently at the heart of the human experience. It's a quiet whisper in our youth and a profound echo in our later years. It is a question that wealth cannot answer and success cannot fully satisfy. It is the simple, yet monumentally important question: what does it mean to live a life that is truly well lived? For many of us, the world has offered a clear and compelling blueprint. It tells us that a life well lived is a life of accumulation, a grand tower built from the bricks of achievements, a good education, a stable career, raising a family, buying a home, reaching the pinnacle of our profession, and finally, earning a peaceful retirement. We follow this map diligently, ticking the boxes, climbing the ladder, always with our eyes fixed on the next milestone, the next horizon. We live our lives in a state of perpetual forward motion, believing that true contentment lies at the destination just ahead. We tell ourselves, when I retire, then I will have time to be peaceful. When the children are grown, then I will have time for myself. When this project is finished, then I can finally relax. But a strange thing happens when we arrive at these destinations. The peace we expected to find can feel fleeting. The contentment can feel temporary. We reach the summit of one mountain only to see a range of new peaks stretching out before us. And a quiet, subtle weariness can set in. A feeling deep down that perhaps we've been reading the wrong map all along. We look back at the blur of decades, at the whirlwind of activity, and we wonder if, in our race to the finish line, we missed the scenery along the way. What if the answer to a life well lived isn't found by adding more to it? What if the secret isn't about reaching a destination at all? What if, instead, it is about learning to fully inhabit the journey itself? This is where the path of the monk offers us a profound and beautiful alternative. From the outside, a monk's life can seem one of austerity, of emptiness, of renunciation. But this is a misunderstanding. The monk is not emptying their life. They are emptying their life of distractions so they can experience its inherent fullness. Their life is a masterclass in discovering the extraordinary richness hidden within the simplest of moments. So today, we are not going to talk about renouncing the world or moving to a monastery. Instead, we are extending a gentle invitation to look at our own lives, our beautiful, complex, messy, and wonderful lives through the clear and compassionate lens of this ancient wisdom. It is an invitation to stop striving and to start seeing. It is an invitation to discover that a life well lived is not something you build for the future, but something you uncover in the present. Most of us, whether we are working 9 to 5 or are long since retired, live what could be called a rushed life. Even when our bodies are still, our minds are in a frantic sprint. We are perpetually caught in a current of thought, swept between the shores of yesterday and tomorrow. We sit down for a quiet cup of coffee, and our mind is already racing through a to-do list for the day. We are in conversation with a loved one, but half of our attention is caught on a worry about an upcoming appointment. We go for a walk in nature, a place of profound peace, yet we spend the whole time lost in a mental replay of a past argument or a future concern. We have become so accustomed to this inner noise, this constant mental chatter, that we mistake it for the very nature of life itself. We believe that to be alive is to be constantly thinking, planning, worrying, and remembering. We are human doings, far more than we are human beings. This creates a subtle, persistent friction in our existence. It's a low-grade hum of anxiety, a feeling of being disconnected from our own experience. Our inner peace becomes incredibly fragile, entirely dependent on the world outside of us behaving exactly as we want it to. We become easily agitated by the smallest things. The driver who cuts us off in traffic, the grocery store being out of our favorite brand of bread, a thoughtless comment from a friend, a plan that suddenly changes. Our emotional state becomes a ship tossed on the waves of external events, and we feel powerless. There is a classic Zen story that shines a powerful light on this very human predicament. A monk, seeking deep stillness, decided to meditate in a small boat in the middle of a vast, calm lake. The air was still, the water was like glass, and a profound silence enveloped him. He closed his eyes and settled into a deep, peaceful meditation. He was completely absorbed in the stillness. Suddenly, he felt a sharp, jarring jolt. Another boat had bumped directly into his. His eyes shot open, and a surge of hot anger rose in his chest. Who was this careless, inconsiderate person who had so rudely shattered his perfect peace? He turned, his mouth open, ready to unleash a torrent of angry words at the fool who had crashed into his boat. But when he looked, he saw that the other boat was completely empty. It had simply come untethered from the shore, and the gentle current had carried it across the lake until it bumped into his. In that instant, the monk experienced a moment of profound enlightenment. He understood, with absolute clarity, that the anger was not in the other boat. The anger had never been in the other boat. The anger was within him. The empty boat had not created his anger. It had merely acted as a trigger, revealing the anger that was already dormant inside him, waiting for an excuse to arise. From that day forward, the story goes, whenever a person or a situation irritated him or caused him frustration, he would pause, take a breath, and remind himself, the other boat is empty. He realized that the disturbance was never truly coming from the outside. It was always arising from his own inner reaction. This is the great lesson for our rushed lives. We are constantly blaming the other boats. We blame the traffic, the weather, our spouse, our children, the news, our financial situation, our health. We have an endless list of external things that we believe are the source of our frustration and our lack of peace. But the wisdom of the monk teaches us that these are all just empty boats. They are neutral events. They only gain the power to disturb us when they collide with the pre-existing agitation within our own minds. True peace, therefore, does not come from trying to control all the other boats on the lake. That is an impossible, exhausting task. True peace comes from tending to the stillness within our own boat, so that when the inevitable bumps of life occur, we can meet them with stability, grace, and understanding. This leads us to another fundamental teaching, often referred to as the second arrow. The Buddha taught that in life, we cannot avoid the first arrow. The first arrow is the objective event. It is the pain of a headache, the sorrow of a loss, the frustration of a setback. These things are a natural, unavoidable part of the human experience. To live is to be struck by first arrows from time to time. However, we have a choice about the second arrow. The second arrow is our reaction to the first. It is the story we tell ourselves about the pain. The first arrow is the headache. The second arrow is the thought, "This is ruining my day. I can't get anything done. Why does this always happen to me?" The first arrow is a critical comment from a friend. The second arrow is the endless loop of rumination, shame, and anger that follows. The first arrow is pain. The second arrow is suffering. The monk's practice is to learn to feel the sting of the first arrow without firing the second arrow of our own reactivity into ourselves. We do this by recognizing that our thoughts and our stories about reality are not reality itself. They are just thoughts. They are just stories. There's a wise Taoist story that illustrates this beautifully, about a farmer in a small village. One day, his only horse ran away. All the villagers came to console him, saying, "Oh, what terrible luck! Your only horse is gone." The farmer simply replied, "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" A week later, the horse returned, and it brought with it a herd of wild horses. The villagers were overjoyed for him. "What incredible good luck!" they exclaimed. The farmer just shrugged and said, "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" The next day, the farmer's son was trying to tame one of the wild horses when he was thrown off and broke his leg. The villagers again came to offer their condolences. "What awful bad luck," they said. The farmer replied, "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" A week after that, the emperor's army came to the village, conscripting every able-bodied young man for a war they were certain to lose. Because the farmer's son had a broken leg, he was the only young man in the village who was spared. The problem, then, is not that life is full of events. The problem is that we are constantly judging these events, labeling them, and then reacting to our own labels as if they were absolute truth. We exhaust ourselves trying to cling to the good luck and push away the bad luck, without realizing that the tapestry of life is woven with both threads. The monk learns to observe the unfolding of life with a sense of equanimity, understanding that the true nature of an event can only be known in the fullness of time, if at all. The goal is to release the exhausting burden of constant judgment and to simply be present with what is. So, what is the monk's secret? If a life well lived is not about controlling the world or achieving more, what is it? The central teaching, the very heart of the practice, is profoundly simple, yet it holds the power to transform everything. It is this: a life well lived is nothing more than a collection of well-lived moments. The secret is to stop seeking the sacred in some far-off future event, and to begin the practice of finding the sacred in the ordinary, overlooked moments of our daily lives. It is a radical shift in perspective, a shift from seeking grand, cinematic experiences to honoring the quiet, unnoticed miracles that populate our everyday. The feeling of the warm sun on our skin on a cool morning, the rich, earthy aroma of brewing coffee, the mesmerizing sight of dust motes dancing in a sunbeam, the comfortable, easy silence shared with a spouse of 50 years, the sound of rain tapping gently against the window pane. These are not the small, insignificant interruptions that happen between the important parts of our life. These moments are our life. This is the very fabric of our existence, and for the most part, we are completely absent for it. There is a powerful Zen story that captures the essence of this teaching perfectly. A man was walking through the forest, enjoying the beauty of the day, when he heard a ferocious roar behind him. He turned and his heart froze. A massive, hungry tiger was charging directly at him. He ran for his life, adrenaline coursing through his veins. The tiger was faster, gaining on him with every stride. He came to the edge of a great cliff. With nowhere else to go, his only hope was a thick vine hanging down over the edge. He grabbed onto it and swung himself down, out of the tiger's reach. As he was hanging there, his heart pounding in his chest, the tiger sniffing and snarling at him from the cliff top above, he looked down, and to his utter horror, he saw another tiger on the ground far below, looking up, licking its lips, waiting for him to fall. He was trapped, suspended between two certain deaths. Then, as if his situation couldn't get any worse, he saw two small mice, one white and one black, emerge from a crevice in the cliff. They began to nibble, steadily, at the vine he was holding onto. He knew that at any moment the vine would snap. His life was hanging by a thread, being eaten away by the relentless passage of time. It was in that moment of absolute, complete despair that he noticed something. Growing out of the cliff face, just within his reach, was a small wild strawberry bush, and on it hung a single, perfectly ripe, crimson-red strawberry. Holding onto the fraying vine with one hand, he reached out with the other. He carefully plucked the strawberry. He brought it to his lips, and he savored it. It was, he thought, the most incredibly delicious strawberry he had ever tasted. That strawberry, that is the present moment. The tiger above is the past, with all its regrets and fears, constantly chasing us. The tiger below is the future, with all its anxieties and uncertainties, waiting to devour us. The two mice, white for day and black for night, are the relentless passage of time, steadily eating away at the vine of our life. We are all, in our own way, hanging on that vine. We are all suspended between the past we cannot change and the future we cannot control. But right here, right now, in this very moment, there is always a strawberry. There is always a moment of simple, tangible reality, a moment of sweetness, a moment of beauty, a moment of peace that we can choose to fully experience. A life well lived, the monk teaches us, is simply a life where we learn to notice and to truly taste the strawberries. And this is not just a lovely idea. It is a practice, a skill that we can cultivate moment by moment. It begins with the simplest and most accessible tool we have, our own breath. The breath is the perfect anchor to the present moment. You cannot breathe in the past. You cannot breathe in the future. You can only breathe right now. When the mind is a chaotic storm of thoughts, the breath is the calm harbor we can always return to. The practice is simply to notice it, to feel the sensation of the cool air entering your nostrils, the gentle rise of your chest and abdomen, and the feeling of release as the warm air leaves your body. You don't need to change it, control it, or judge it. You just need to feel it. In feeling the breath, you are bringing your awareness out of the world of thought and grounding it in the world of direct sensory experience. You are coming home to the present moment. From the breath, we can expand this awareness to all of our senses. This is the practice of sensory awakening. It is about learning to inhabit our bodies and our environment with our full attention. You can do this right now. What are the sounds you can hear? Not just the obvious sounds, but the subtle ones. The hum of a refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic, the rustle of your own clothing. Can you listen to these sounds without labeling them as good or bad, but simply as pure sensation, as the soundtrack of this present moment? What can you see? If your eyes are open, notice the play of light and shadow in the room. Notice the colors, the textures, the shapes. Don't just name them, that's a lamp, that's a wall, but really see them as if for the first time. If your eyes are closed, notice the patterns of light and dark on the inside of your eyelids. What can you feel? Feel the sensation of your feet on the floor, the weight of your body in the chair, the texture of the fabric against your skin, the temperature of the air. Our bodies are constantly sending us a stream of information about the present moment, but we are usually too lost in thought to notice. This practice of presence can then be woven into the fabric of our daily activities. The great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh taught the practice of mindful tasks. He said that when you are washing the dishes, you should wash the dishes to wash the dishes. This means that while you are washing them, you are not thinking about the email you need to send or the conversation you had yesterday. You are fully present with the act of washing. You feel the warmth of the water on your hands. You see the shimmering soap bubbles. You hear the clink of the plates. You smell the scent of the dish soap. You transform a mundane chore into a profound meditation. You can apply this to anything. When you are drinking a cup of tea, just drink the tea. When you are walking, just walk. Feel the movement of your legs, the contact of your feet with the ground, the feeling of the air moving past you. When you are listening to someone, truly listen. Don't just wait for your turn to speak. Give them the gift of your full, undivided attention. In these simple, conscious acts of presence, we begin to string together well-lived moments. And soon, we discover we are creating a well-lived day, and then a well-lived week, and ultimately, a well-lived life. There is a story of a great emperor who went to visit a wise old monk. The emperor was a powerful man, but his mind was troubled. He said to the monk, "Master, my mind is full of anxiety and turmoil. I cannot find peace. Please, pacify my mind for me." The monk looked at him calmly and said, "Show me your mind, and I will pacify it." The emperor was confused. "What do you mean, show you my mind? It's not a physical thing I can hand to you." The monk smiled gently and replied, "Exactly. If you cannot find this mind to show me, then it is already pacified." The emperor's breakthrough was the realization that his mind, his thoughts, his anxieties were not a solid, monstrous thing that controlled him. They were more like clouds passing through the vast, open sky of his awareness. The practice is not to fight the clouds or to try and force the sky to be clear. The practice is to rest in the awareness of the sky itself and to allow the clouds of thought and emotion to come and to go without clinging to them and without pushing them away. Peace is not the absence of clouds. It is the realization that you are the sky. A final, essential ingredient in a life well lived from this perspective is the cultivation of compassion, what is known in Buddhism as metta, or loving kindness. This practice begins with ourselves. So often, we are our own harshest critics. We replay our mistakes, we judge our shortcomings, and we hold ourselves to impossible standards. The monk learns the art of self-compassion, the art of offering ourselves the same kindness and understanding we would offer to a dear friend who is struggling. It is a gentle whisper of, "It's okay, you are human, you are learning," instead of the harsh shout of self-criticism. From this place of self-acceptance, we can then extend that kindness outward. We can practice wishing well for others, not just our loved ones, but neutral people, and even those with whom we have difficulty. This is not about condoning harmful behavior. It is about releasing the poison of anger and resentment from our own hearts. Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. The practice of loving kindness is the practice of dropping the hot coal for our own sake. It is the recognition of our shared humanity, the understanding that everyone, just like us, is simply trying to find happiness and avoid suffering. And so, we return to our original question. What is a life well lived? It is not a life free from challenges or a life of perfect, uninterrupted happiness. That is an illusion. The monk's wisdom shows us that a life well lived is one lived with open-eyed presence. It is a life where we learn to stop blaming the empty boats for our inner turmoil. A life where we learn to feel the first arrow without firing the second. A life where we learn to savor the exquisite taste of the strawberries that are always present, even in the midst of our greatest difficulties. It is a life of awareness, where we transform mundane chores into sacred rituals. It is a life of compassion, where we learn to be a true friend to ourselves first, so that we can be a true friend to the world. This is not another thing to achieve, another box to tick on the list of self-improvement. It is not a destination, it is a practice. A gentle, moment-by-moment returning. A returning to the breath. A returning to the senses. A returning to the simple, profound, and miraculous reality of being alive, right here, right now. The greatest teaching a monk can offer us is this: you do not need to live in a monastery to find the peace you seek. Your kitchen can be your meditation hall. A walk around your block can be your sacred pilgrimage. A simple, mindful conversation with a loved one can be your deepest practice. A life well lived is not found at the end of the road. It is found in the rich, vibrant texture of each step. It is a life measured not in its length of years, but in its depth of moments that were truly, fully lived. Thank you for sharing this time and this space. Carry this quiet wisdom with you into your day. May you be well, may you be peaceful, and may you find the sacred in the beautiful, ordinary moments of your one precious life.